Mental Health Moments. My name is Linda Golick. I am the Health and Wellbeing Consultant at Amplify Health by Bellin. And once again, joined by two fabulous licensed behavioral health therapists, Michaela Vandenboom and Hannah Bauer. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode. Just want to note that you see my background up here. We are recording this in May, Mental Health Awareness Month. So just such an important reminder how very vital our mental health is and why we do these episodes, because it's such a big part of us showing up in our lives. So today we are going to focus on our next topic that we're introducing in our Lifesaver Wellbeing series is purpose, meaning, and spirit, strengthening the inner core. And so this is really a campaign where we are talking about spiritual well-being, what that means for different folks and how that plays into our health and well-being, particularly on this episode, how it's going to play into our mental well-being. So ladies, let's start with the first part of that sentence per se, purpose and meaning, So how do you all define that? How does that show up for people? And why is that such an important part of mental health? So Michaela, why don't we start with you?
When we talk about the purpose and meaning for people, I like to always frame it as like your purpose is your reasons to like your why moving forward. So those big goals that you have, what are you working towards? What are you striving for? And then meaning is the why behind it. Like, why are you doing this? So, I have this big goal of going to school to do something phenomenal because I want to get a career where I can change somebody's life. And I mean, it obviously doesn't have to be something so specific and goal oriented, but then we think about just like our basic everyday lives of people come in all the time that are like, I'm just this, I'm just that. And when we think about it, like we're not just one thing, we have so many different purposes and we have so many different meanings as to why we work towards those purposes and those goals in our life that we need to look at the bigger structure and sometimes break it down a little bit more too.
What are your thoughts on that, Hannah?
No, I would definitely agree. And I think too, something that I find myself working on a lot with people is, depending on circumstance, right? Some people have a lot of reasons and a lot of different opportunities to find purpose, but also, there's a decent portion of the population that just doesn't, right? Like their life feels very stagnant, limited opportunities, and it's a lot of the same. So it's encouraging them just, even if things feel stagnant and you feel stuck, like meeting different situations and experiences with curiosity, like find a reason, right? Like let that be your purpose, like just understanding things in a different way. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that propels you forward, because like if you feel like your life is, the same, forward is not anything different. So just finding different ways to be curious, different ways to be grounded in like, this is where I'm at right now. How can I shift my perspective? Like, what are some things maybe I haven't thought about? Like, what are some things that within my circumstance I could do? I could try. Maybe if I try it now, it'll feel a little bit different than it did the last time. Just filling your time, because again, the time passes anyway. Be curious. See how if it can pass differently. That can be your purpose. And just, just for yourself, just finding ways to do things a little bit differently, maybe a little bit more enjoyable, but sometimes the difference is you just need something to be different.
The phrase, don't think about it as something is happening to you, but it's happening for you. And so that idea of as different things are coming at us in life and you're kind of wondering the why and those types of things, asking those questions of, but what can I learn from this? Or what can this teach me? How can I take this forward? Kind of again, like you all are saying, staying curious. Really just a great perspective. So then let's talk about kind of the spirituality piece. And, we know that people may define spirit in different ways. So how do you all approach that? Like, how do you approach spiritual well-being in an inclusive, client-centered type of way?
I'll go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great one, right? Don't all answer at once.
So I think it's another example of just meeting people where they're at, because I mean,
Mhm.
truly, spirituality can mean anything. But I
Mm.
think, kind of like what I said before, like it's anchored in, a curiosity, a desire to understand, and a desire to like see things from a different perspective. So just figuring out maybe where they fall and what that means to them, and how that kind of applies to their life, and then building on it, right? Like there's no set way that someone can be spiritual. There's so many different ways. And then exploring that, because again, the time passes anyway, but maybe you find something in this self-exploration that you're like, oh, this really makes sense to me. Like this really helps me navigate through something that I know is difficult, but with this perspective or with this curiosity, I can take a step back, see it differently, and make different decisions or different movements. So that's, yeah, kind of my perspective on spirituality.
Yeah, and I was
How about
pretty
you,
much going to
Kayla?
piggyback off that. It's really just an individual perspective, right? Like
Hmm.
one of our things when we meet with people is, what is your spiritual connection? Like what
Yep.
is your background in that? And we ask them, and some people say nothing at all, and then others really dive into that. And if it's an important aspect of their life, then we can play on that. And
Hmm.
what benefits do you get from exploring these types of things, whether that's nature, whether that's culturally, whether that's religious, whether that's art? It can be
Right.
so many different things. Often when
Yes.
people are like, what is your spiritual connection? What is your spiritual support? It's often tied back to like, oh, my religion, or how did I grow up
Hmm.
being raised, which doesn't necessarily influence or impact
Right.
anything that we're thinking now in the broader perspective.
Right.
Yeah. And I just love the idea of like, yeah, and then how can we use that, right?
Mhm.
Because it's kind of like when we look at someone's, life experiences, what speaks to them, what doesn't speak to them, spirituality may or may not be part of that. Interesting, and a lot of the research I did on this topic is just how beneficial the science shows that it is for physical and mental health. So, as you're listening to this podcast, just thinking about that, if this isn't a very large part of life for you, and you want to learn more, this might be an opportunity. One of the things that seems to come up a lot when people think about spirituality and what makes them feel grounded and what makes them feel connected is the important relationships that they hold in their lives. And that seems to be even an element for folks. So, how do you all talk about that, or how do you help people connect, to those relationships so that they get that and that helps them be grounded and resilient?
I think a lot of the times when we think about those relationships, they are built off of like those spiritual connections, right? We seek people
Hmm.
oftentimes that we have similar interests or understanding or supports in. So if we're like, let's just use art or nature as an example, as
Hmm.
something spiritual to build those relationships. If we feel we have a purpose and meaning to this spiritual connection and this activity or these things that we're doing, and we're surrounded by others that do it, that again gives us more purpose and meaning and just builds us as a whole, honestly.
Yeah, I think with like any type of spirituality, it comes with, a sense of community oftentimes. So yeah, it's another way to make those connections. It's another way to know somebody in, a situation where it maybe feels a little bit more comfortable, because you're like, well, we already have this in common and we already appreciate this, or we move through life this way. It'll be easier to talk. Like you feel like there is just a higher likelihood that you're going to be supported or understood or seen. So it really just, it's an opportunity to connect with people and share what is important to you and show up in that way.
Yeah. I think about, I have a couple, women in my life. I consider them like they are my soul sisters. Like I just feel like we have
Hmm.
such a special connection. We're not family, we're not blood, but there's just something really binding. There's something really connected about the way we think, the way we act, the things we like, the things we don't like,
Hmm.
what's important to us. We have these amazing conversations, and I think that's a beautiful example of, that's spirituality
Hmm.
at play,
Hmm.
connecting with people that you just feel like you share something with, something really deep. So that's cool. You guys mentioned nature a little bit. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Lots of great evidence out there on the power of nature, just the way it lowers cortisol levels, it decreases anxiety and depression. Just some of these experiences. So, what do you all see in that way, and what do you have any recommendations on how people can interact with nature to help them connect in a way of spiritual well-being?
Honestly,
Go
just
ahead,
get
Hannah.
outside. Go, Hannah.
Whoever
I mean, I was going to agree with you. I mean,
Yes,
like,
get outside, right?
yes, get outside, start there, and then
Yes.
like
Yes.
try other things. There are literally no rules. Try something. If you hate it, great. Then you know. If you don't, great. Build on that. Start with 5 minutes a day just sitting out there. Take an extra long way back into the house from like when you're coming home from work or on your way into work. Like there's so many ways to interact with nature and allow like yourself to have that experience where you can just exist. That, yeah, definitely capitalize on that. But start small, start with where you're at. You don't have to go for a 20-mile hike. You can just sit there.
Take your shoes off, go outside, step in the
Yeah.
dirt, step in the grass, go breathe some fresh
Mhm.
air, get some
Feel the
sunshine.
sun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, all of that. And I mean, that just makes me happy even thinking about being outside. And actually, I saw this come to play in a niece of mine. We were at a family gathering and we were all sitting outside and she got up and she started walking around. And then she took her shoes off and she was just kind of doing these laps. And I went over by her just to kind of make sure, everything was okay. And she's like, yeah, I'm just enjoying like being here, but then also just kind of, she was listening to her music and just enjoying that. And I walked with her for a while, and it was actually very meditative. It was very meditative to just get up, walk around in the grass, look at the trees. There was actually also a meditation that I learned long ago and was just reminded of it recently. The idea of going outside and using your five senses. Maybe not taste, depending on the situation. Maybe not grabbing, but stop and just listen for a minute. What do you hear? Do that for a full minute. Then what do you see for a full minute? Then what do you feel? What do you smell? And it's actually a super calming activity. And so it would maybe take like 4 minutes if you wanted to do it fully. But even if you just want to take, I think, a minute outside, do 15 seconds of each. I think it actually calms down our nervous systems and just kind of grounds us and brings us down a little bit.
I think of
Just a
anyone that's a
simple tip.
parent, like that they tell you if you have a grumpy child or if your child's
Go
not,
outside.
go outside or put them in water, right? Like
Yes.
these kids at such a young age are not taught these instincts, but if you put them outside and watch them, they're going to explore. They're going to do the things that their body are going to guide them to do, of touching the grass, picking up the things, playing in the dirt, whatever it is. And that's showing us as adults that that's just as beneficial for us as it is for them.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. And just to me, also a part of it is getting away from technology.
Yes.
Like go outside, just be
Yeah.
outside. Maybe don't take your phone, have your phone with you, but maybe don't look at it. So,
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that.
Well, even with like my kids, I'll take like something so simple, but like I'll make them snack outside. Like sit on the
I was
front
gonna say, eat
porch
your
and
lunch
just be
outside.
outside.
Yeah.
Yes. Just, it's simple, but
Yeah.
it's a way to disconnect. It's a way to be present, and like, especially for little kids, like they can start to notice that difference of like, oh, when I do this and I'm outside, like it's the same thing, but it feels different. It feels really nice. So helping them to kind of, create those coping skills and recognize that about themselves and their bodies.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So do you all have like, some habits that you could recommend for people to help them like reconnect with themselves, kind of tune into either purpose or spirituality when they're going throughout the day and things are really crazy and chaotic? Like what do you recommend for people to just kind of, recenter themselves?
Playing off what Hannah said first, right? Try something new, be curious. if we go through and say, hey, I've done all these things, no, you didn't. There's always going to be something out there, right? Something that
Yes.
we didn't try, and if we haven't tried it, we don't know.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that you also said too is just that digital detox. Shut yourself off, make mindful transitions, and if that's 10 minutes between work of getting up and stepping away from your computer or stepping outside, maybe turning on your favorite song, whatever that might be, just being present in that time that you have, I think that's really important.
Yeah. And it's one of the biggest things that I say to people that are like, oh my gosh, 5 minutes like without my phone and I'm just alone with my thoughts, like that's overwhelming. That's fine, right? Like know where you're at, but also then like start a little smaller. Set a timer for 2 minutes and like just practicing being alone with yourself, practicing figuring out like, okay, what feels nice? Like, do I want it warmer? Do I want it cooler? Do I want to stand outside and do I want to feel the sun or do I want to be in the shade? Like, what do I need? What does my body need? And what does that feel like to me? If you got 2 minutes, then we might as well use them and figure out, yeah, how are we feeling? What do we need? Yeah, start small. Gosh.
Love that. Love that. And I think that's always the key, right? Like don't feel like you have to do everything all at once, but maybe pick one little thing, try it, start to make it more consistent, notice how you feel, let that expand. We don't need to do it all at once. So one kind of final question then, what does feeling well then look like? If somebody really is spiritually well, they're really well connected to purpose, meaning, what does that look like? And then how does that ultimately benefit them?
I would say I'm not sure what that looks like because I think the goal is for it to be used and experienced, right? Like life is going to be hard. You're going to be going through hard things. You're going to struggle. Like that doesn't mean that you're not well. It's a signal, right, for us to utilize our resources, our supports, our community, our spirituality. And again, then we got to change our approach. Like I have to find a way to take care of myself. I should be able to problem solve and I'll use my community for that and things like that. So I don't know that it necessarily looks like anything, but I think that the way that we check in with ourselves is like, what am I doing? How am I solving this problem? Am I including other people? Am I connecting spiritually to whatever I need to change my perspective or feel grounded or even just, like feel comfortable within myself? And if I'm doing that enough, great. If I'm not, then, I need to be able to utilize that resource a little bit more.
I agree with that because you're never going to have everything all put together at once. So I think living in accordance to your best sense of self that you can live up to, living in accordance to your values, your morals, doing what you feel is best for you. If that's what you feel is I'm feeling well, I'm physically well, I'm emotionally well, this is where I'm at, and that's ever changing. I think that's a good place to be.
Yeah, it's more about the, like the journey and the process is not necessarily about the destination because it's fleeting, right? Like everything is just such a variable. It is always changing that you're just, being able to adjust is a way to, manage.
That's what I was thinking too. It looks different at different times of life too, depending where you're at and what's going on in different circumstances. That is going to change. And what felt meaningful and purposeful, maybe in one part of your life now has shifted to maybe something else in your life. And that's okay because we're always evolving, learning, growing, experiencing more and more and more. So. Well, ladies, I really appreciated this conversation. What a great session for all of us to just kind of pause and think about what this can look like in different ways for different people. And I'm hoping our audience today takes a pause, thinks about what their spiritual wellness dimension looks like. Do you want to work on it? Is something that you feel like you need to work on? If it's feeling good, what are you doing that makes it feel good for you? And just continue being curious and exploring, those dimensions of well-being. So I thank you too for your time. As always, it's always great to see you. For those watching, please like, subscribe, share this podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, ladies.